The night was a curtain of cold rain, every drop slicing through the silence, like a whisper of doom. Streetlights flickered weakly over the empty road, casting fleeting shadows that danced across cracked pavement. In the middle of it all, a figure crawled, slow, agonizing, and fragile. Elise's blood mingled with the rain, streaking down her trembling legs. One hand pressed against her swollen belly, the other digging into the gravel to drag herself forward. Her face was streaked with both water and tears, though it was impossible to tell them apart now. Her lips trembled, not from the cold, but from shock, from betrayal, from pain that was deeper than shattered bones. Her breaths came in broken sobs, echoing faintly in the distance. Thunder cracked overhead, but it wasn't louder than the screams still ringing in her ears. Flashback flashes. The cold glare in Kinza's eyes. The glint of the metal pipe in her manicured hands. A sickening crunch. Elise's scream slicing through the marble walls of the mansion. Ramiz standing there frozen. Watching. Doing nothing. Then, darkness. Now, on this deserted road, she kept moving. For her unborn child. For the last shred of dignity she had left. Her clothes clung to her like second skin, soaked and stained. Her wedding ring had been ripped off. Her leg throbbed with a pain she couldn't fully comprehend, dislocated, fractured, or worse. In the distance, a car passed without stopping. The world, it seemed, had already written her off. I thought I married a man. Turns out I was a pawn in someone else's game. My love was real. His promises weren't. A car engine revved far behind her. The glare of headlights suddenly lit the road. A figure stepped out. We only see his boots splash into the puddles, heavy, fast, angry. The camera slowly pans up to her face, bloodied but burning with something deeper than hate, resolve.
Cut to black.
The sun filtered gently through the sheer silk curtains of the lavish bedroom. Gold accents shimmered across the walls of the mansion, and the faint scent of fresh lilies, Alina's favorite, lingered in the air. From the outside, everything looked perfect. And for a woman 7 months pregnant, Alina should have been glowing with joy. But inside her heart, a quiet storm was brewing. Alina sat at the vanity table, brushing her long hair slowly, thoughtfully. Her fingers trembled slightly as she looked at her reflection, not just at her growing belly, but at the shadows under her eyes that no makeup could conceal. She had everything, a wealthy, handsome husband, designer clothes, servants at her call. Yet the ache in her heart grew heavier by the day. Harris, her husband, had been the perfect man in the early months of their marriage, charming, doting, indulgent. He had swept her off her feet with expensive gifts, surprise weekend getaways, and soft-spoken promises. But ever since she had conceived, something had changed. He still brought her flowers, but rarely kissed her forehead like he used to. He still gifted her jewelry, but his eyes never lingered on her anymore. His smiles were hollow, timed, rehearsed. And then there were the meetings, always with the same woman, always strictly business. Always late into the night. Samra. Alina had never met her in person, but she had seen the name flash across Harris's phone screen too many times to count. Once at midnight. Once while they were having dinner. Once while she was sobbing quietly in the washroom, and he didn't knock. She remembered asking him once, lightly, carefully, if everything was okay at work. He had smiled, kissed her cheek, and said, "You worry too much, my love." That night, he came home smelling of a different perfume. She didn't bring it up again. Across the globe, in a small apartment in London, Denial scrolled through pictures of Alina's baby shower. His eyes lingered on her smile. It didn't quite reach her eyes. As her older brother, he had always known when she was faking it. He called her often, sometimes twice a day. "Are you eating enough? Is Harris treating you well? Let me know if you need me back. I'll take the next flight." Alina would laugh, reassure him, and change the topic. She knew if Denial sensed even a flicker of danger, he'd fly down instantly.
But she didn't want that.
Not yet. She didn't want her brother to hate Harris, not without proof. Not unless there was no other way. For the sake of her unborn child, she kept the doubts buried deep. One evening, she stood in the baby's room, staring at the crib. It was white, adorned with delicate lace, and a soft stuffed elephant sat in one corner. Her hand moved slowly across her belly. "You'll have a perfect life," she whispered. "No matter what." But behind her, in the dim hallway, she could hear Harris on the phone, laughing softly, his voice low, intimate. "I miss you too, Samra." Alina closed her eyes. The mansion was beautiful. The life looked perfect.
But it was all a lie.
A beautiful, shattering lie. The first sign wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. It was a lipstick. A deep crimson shade, bold, sultry, tucked into the passenger side door pocket of Harris's luxury SUV. Alina had been looking for a misplaced house key when her fingers brushed against it. Her heart stalled. She never wore this color. Never bought this brand. Her pulse quickened. Logic tried to calm her. Maybe it belongs to a client? Or a gift for someone. But instinct is louder than reason, and her gut screamed the truth before her mind could silence it. She put the lipstick back exactly where she found it, closed the car door softly, and stepped back, her hand resting on her round belly. That night, Harris came home late. Again. His excuse? A business dinner. He smelled of expensive cologne and wine. She watched him from across the dining table as he scrolled on his phone, replying to someone with a faint smile. Her food remained untouched. The next day, she made a decision. One she never thought she'd make. She followed him. She waited until he left the house, then asked the driver to take her to the mall. Once there, she slipped into a rickshaw she had arranged secretly and followed Harris's car from a distance. It led her to an upscale hotel. She watched, breath caught in her throat, as Harris stepped out of his car and opened the door for her. Samra, younger, slender, with long curls and blood-red lips. She wore confidence like perfume and clung to Harris like a second skin. Alina sat frozen, watching them walk into the hotel lobby laughing, his hand grazing the small of Samra's back. The world didn't crash. It collapsed slowly, painfully, like glass cracking beneath pressure. When Harris returned home that night, Alina confronted him. Calmly, quietly. "I saw you," she whispered. "With her." Harris blinked, then chuckled. "Oh God, Alina. You're really going to do this? You've been acting paranoid ever since you got pregnant." Her face burned. "I'm not." He cut her off. "You're hormonal. You're exhausted. And now you're imagining affairs? Samra is my business associate. That's it." "You touched her." He stepped closer, voice low, threatening beneath the smile. "Maybe stop spying on me like a crazy woman. Do you want to hurt our child with this stress?" Alina's voice disappeared in her throat. He kissed her forehead, gently, like nothing had happened, then walked away. Gaslight. Dismissed. Silenced. She spent the next few nights awake, staring at the ceiling, clutching her belly. The baby kicked often, as if responding to her turmoil. The mansion began to feel haunted, not with ghosts, but with betrayals. Days later, Samra walked in through the front doors like she belonged. Wearing expensive heels and a smug smile, she greeted the house staff with sugary sweetness. Alina stood frozen at the top of the staircase as Harris introduced her casually. "This is Samra, my new project partner. She'll be visiting often." Alina felt like she was watching a play. A cruel, twisted drama where the villain wore designer sunglasses and walked with the poise of a queen. Samra made herself comfortable fast. She took meetings in Harris's study. She whispered too closely in his ear. She laughed loudly at his jokes, even in Alina's presence. Once, Alina walked into the living room to find Samra sitting in her favorite armchair, sipping coffee. "I was just telling Harris how lucky he is," Samra said, smiling sweetly. "To have someone like you. So calm." Alina smiled back. It was hollow. Her hands trembled behind her back. She was breaking, piece by invisible piece. In the mirror above the fireplace, Alina caught her own reflection. She looked pale, tired, powerless. And standing behind her was Samra, the mistress in the mirror. The night was unusually silent. No traffic outside. No wind through the trees. Just the heavy quiet of a mansion too big for one woman and her unborn child. Harris kissed Alina on the forehead before leaving. "Just a short business trip," he said. "I'll be back in 2 days." He didn't look her in the eyes. She nodded, clutching the doorframe for balance. Something felt off, but she'd learned not to question Harris. Her questions only led to cold silences or cruel deflections. The moment his car disappeared into the dark, the silence grew heavier. Alina tried to relax, took a warm shower, and settled on the couch. Her belly ached slightly. She rested her hand on it and whispered, "You're safe with me. I promise." She didn't know it was a promise she wouldn't be allowed to keep. A knock at the door startled her. Too late for visitors. Before she could even stand, the housekeeper entered the living room, confused. "Madam, Miss Samra is here. She says she's here for a project file." Alina's blood turned to ice. Before she could respond, Samra entered, uninvited, radiant, and predatory. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were knives. "Oh, Alina," she cooed, walking in like she owned the place. "I didn't expect you to be awake. I just need to grab a file Harris left behind." Alina tried to stay civil. "He's not here." "I know," Samra said smoothly, sitting beside her on the couch and placing a small tray on the table. "But I brought us tea. We haven't had a proper chat yet, you and I." Alina hesitated, but her throat was dry, and she didn't want to appear paranoid again. She took the cup. Samra watched her sip.
"You're so strong," she said.
Carrying his child, living all alone in this house, must be exhausting. Alina blinked slowly. Her heartbeat began to race. The room spun gently. Her limbs grew heavy. "You drugged me," she tried to say, but the words slurred into silence. The last thing she saw was Samra's satisfied smirk as she leaned forward and whispered, "Sleep tight, darling." Darkness. Then cold. Alina woke up groggy, her head pounding. Her limbs refused to move. Something rough dug into her wrists and ankles. She was tied to a chair. In the garage. Dimly lit. Smelling of oil, rust, and betrayal. She looked down. Her legs were bare, her feet swollen. Samra stepped out of the shadows, wearing latex gloves and humming a soft, eerie tune. "You woke up just in time," she said sweetly, holding up something gleaming. A metal pipe. Long, heavy.
"Deadly."
Alina's eyes widened in horror. "Why?" Samra leaned in, her voice low and chilling. "Because you're in my way, and I'm done waiting." With a grunt, Samra swung the pipe. It cracked against Alina's shin with a sickening sound. Alina screamed. The pain was volcanic, tearing through her body like fire. She begged, pleaded, cried, but there was no one to hear her. The garage was soundproofed. Harris made sure of that when he renovated it for private calls. Another blow, this time to her other leg. Alina's vision blurred, but she refused to pass out. Her baby. She had to stay awake, for her baby. Samra crouched beside her, her voice sickeningly soft. "You don't get it, do you? Harris doesn't love you. He never did. You were just a womb to him. But me, I'm everything." Alina could barely breathe. Her body throbbed. Blood pooled at her feet. Her mind screamed for help. But help was nowhere near. Samra raised the pipe again. Alina's world went black. The rain had started without warning. Thick sheets of it, crashing down over the city like nature itself was mourning. Inside the cold garage, Alina stirred. Pain anchored every bone in her body, but it was her baby's faint fluttering, barely perceptible, that jolted her to consciousness. Her legs were shattered, her body broken. Her face was streaked with blood and tears, but her soul refused to die. The chair she was tied to had toppled in Samra's final strike. That saved her. The ropes loosened just enough for her to wriggle free. Alina whimpered, the sound barely escaping her throat. The world tilted dangerously. Her breath came in short, ragged gasps. But there was one thing louder than the pain, the heartbeat inside her. Her child. Her hope. With her arms trembling, she dragged herself across the oil-stained floor. Every movement sent bolts of agony shooting up her spine. Her legs were useless. Her vision, a cloudy tunnel. But she didn't stop. Inch by inch, she clawed her way toward the garage door, blood smearing behind her like a red trail of truth. The door had been left ajar. Maybe Samra was arrogant. Maybe fate gave her one sliver of mercy. Alina reached it, used the last of her strength to push it open, and fell face first into the storm. The cold rain struck her like needles. But it also brought clarity. She lifted her head, looking toward the street. Just a few meters. She sobbed, cradling her swollen belly. Hold on, baby.
I'm not letting them win.
I'm not letting them win. With fingernails cracked and skin peeling from the gravel, she crawled forward. Headlights flashed in the distance. A horn blared. A truck came to a screeching halt. The driver, an older man with a thick mustache and kind eyes, jumped out, shouting in disbelief. Baji. Alariam. What happened to you? He threw his jacket over her and shouted to someone in the passenger seat. Call the clinic, now. Alina's lips trembled. My baby, please save my baby. He nodded. I promise, Baji. You're safe now. No one's going to hurt you again. 2 hours later, rural emergency clinic, outskirts of Lahore. Alina lay unconscious on a metal hospital bed. The doctor hovered over her, checking fetal heartbeat, stitching wounds, and whispering quiet prayers under her breath. She's lost a lot of blood, the nurse whispered. But that child is strong. The sound of a steady heartbeat filled the room. Thump, thump, thump. The baby was fighting just like the mother. Meanwhile, Dubai, late night. Denial sat in his apartment, sipping black coffee, scrolling through Alina's old pictures. His phone buzzed. It was an unknown number from Pakistan. He almost didn't answer, but something told him to. Hello. A trembling voice came through the line. Are you Alina's brother? His heart dropped.
Yes.
What's going on? She's been brought to our clinic. She was attacked. Her condition is serious. We need you here. The world went silent. He stood up so fast the chair fell behind him. What clinic? Where? I'm coming now. The doctor gave him the address. He booked the first flight before the call ended. As he zipped his bag, his eyes burned with unshed tears and blinding fury. His baby sister had been hurt. Someone would pay. The flight from Dubai to Lahore felt like a lifetime. Denial stared blankly out the window, fists clenched, his pulse a thunderstorm beneath his skin. He'd always been the calm, logical one. The brother who diffused fights, who told Alina to see the good in people. But this time, something inside him had broken. His baby sister, sweet, trusting, gentle Alina, had been left for dead. And the man responsible? The one she married, the one Denial had once shaken hands with and trusted to protect her? Harris. Now, Denial's only mission was justice. Or revenge. Whichever came first. The rural clinic was small but efficient. Staff moved quickly and quietly, respectful, concerned, aware they were treating someone important. Denial stormed through the entrance, like a soldier returning from war. A nurse tried to stop him, but the look in his eyes made her step aside without a word. He paused at the door of room 4. For a second, he couldn't breathe. Then he pushed it open. Alina lay on the hospital bed, wrapped in white sheets, a cast on her left leg and bandages all over her arms. Her face was pale, swollen, but her eyes, those tear-filled brown eyes, lit up when she saw him. Bye. He rushed to her side, falling to his knees, gently gripping her hand. Alakashakar, you're alive. I thought I wouldn't be, she whispered, voice dry. But the baby's okay. They said she's strong. Denial placed a hand over her belly, then kissed her forehead. You're both going to be fine. I won't let anything happen to either of you. Tears finally spilled down his cheeks, but not weakness.
No.
This was the grief of a man forced to become a sword. I'll kill them, he said through clenched teeth. That man and that witch.
Samra, they'll pay.
I swear on Abba's grave.
No.
Alina's voice was soft, but sharp like broken glass. He looked at her, confused. We don't do it like them, she said, gripping his hand. Do it smart. Not like them. Her words shook him. Alina had every right to scream, to demand blood. But instead, she was asking for strategy. He nodded.
Fine.
No fire. No rage. Just truth. The next day, Denial moved Alina to a private recovery room in a trusted city hospital. Security was tight. No visitors. Only doctors and Denial. Then he began digging. He started by hiring a private investigator, placing a few discreet informants in Harris's office and Samra's social circle. He paid off a driver who had once worked at the mansion, who confessed to weird vibes between Harris and Samra long before Alina found out. Denial hacked into Harris's financials with the help of an old friend, a cybersecurity analyst named Fakir. Within days, the pieces began falling into place. Harris had been funneling large sums of money into offshore accounts, all linked to shell companies co-owned by SS Ventures. The S stood for Samra. Even worse, Denial found photos of Harris and Samra vacationing together months before Alina even knew her name. A luxury hotel in Istanbul. A beach resort in Maldives. But that wasn't the end of it. The real bombshell came when Fakir traced Samra's background. She had changed her name 3 years ago. Before that, Sanaa Salim. Arrested twice, once for fraud, once for assault. Both charges were dropped due to lack of evidence and powerful connections. Denial's blood ran cold. He brought this information to the doctor's office, sat beside Alina, and laid out the file. She read silently. Her hands shook. He knew, she whispered.
Yes.
Harris knew exactly who she was. And he brought her into your life anyway. Alina leaned back, tears pooling in her eyes. He never loved me. I was just part of the plan. Denial's jaw clenched. He used you for respect. For family connections. For image.
But now?
Now we use this. All of it. Alina looked at him, something fierce burning in her once soft gaze. Let's end their game, she said. He smiled grimly. It's not a game anymore, Alina. It's war. Denial stood over the glowing laptop screen, eyes scanning line after line of data, his jaw tight with focus. Beside him, Fakir, the cyber expert, tapped away at a keyboard like a pianist in a war zone. Dozens of windows flickered open. IP logs, folder paths, financial transactions, metadata tags. Every keystroke was another shovel into the grave Harris and Samra had dug for themselves. They thought they were smart, Fakir muttered, but even smart people get sloppy when they think no one's watching. It started with something small, an encrypted email from Harris's business account to Samra's burner address. Hidden behind layers of digital firewalls, it seemed untraceable. Until it wasn't. Once she's gone, everything's ours. Denial's heart thudded as he read those words. It wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated murder. From there, the puzzle came together fast. The mansion, bought by Harris but registered in Alina's name. A gift for her dowry and legal property she had never realized held so much value. Insurance policies taken out 2 months before the attack. Signed by Harris. Beneficiary? Himself. And then came the real proof. Fakir found something even more shocking. A hidden camera embedded in the chandelier of Alina's bedroom, connected to a cloud server Harris thought no one could access. It had been recording for months. Denial felt sick as he watched the footage, Samra slipping sedatives into Alina's tea. Harris coldly discussing timelines. The night Alina had been tied in the garage, her muffled screams echoing while Samra laughed in the background. Do it quietly, Harris had said in the video. No bruises on the face. We need the autopsy to look clean. Denial slammed the laptop shut, breathing hard. His hands trembled with rage, but his mind stayed clear. They couldn't wait for the law. The system was slow, easily bribed. He knew how rich men like Harris played the game.
No.
This needed a public execution, not with weapons but with truth. The next morning, Denial contacted a close friend from university, Zara, now a rising investigative journalist with a massive online following. Together, they formed a plan. Zara would host a live expose, a segment titled Behind Closed Doors, The Betrayal of Alina Qureshi. They'd leak the documents, air the footage, and present the timeline in front of the entire country, evidence so loud it couldn't be silenced. Not by money, not by power. Alina approved it all. Quiet, broken Alina, who had once believed in fairy tales, now nodded as they prepared to take down the monsters who tried to erase her. "I don't care if the world sees me bruised," she whispered. "Let them see what monsters look like when they wear perfume and silk ties." Denial met Zara in a dark editing studio that night. He placed the final USB on the desk. "This," he said, "is everything." Zara looked up at him. "Are you ready for what happens next?" He didn't blink. "They try to kill my sister. Now the whole world will watch them burn." Velvet curtains. Crystal chandeliers. Waiters in white gloves moved through the glittering ballroom of the Sapphire Grand Hotel. The charity gala, hosted by the esteemed businessman Harris Zuffer and his partner, Samra Sheikh, was the social event of the season. Or so they thought. The rich mingled, glasses clinked, and news anchors praised the couple's philanthropic heart on social media. Samra, dazzling in an emerald green gown, whispered sweet pleasantries to board members of a child welfare NGO. Harris posed with the minister, a smug smile fixed on his face like a mask. Everything was perfect. Except for one thing. They didn't know the event was being live-streamed. Denial stood backstage, concealed in shadows, headset on, monitoring the feed with Zara and Fakir. Every camera was in place. Every microphone tested. The footage they had worked so hard to collect, the brutal truth, was cued and ready. Denial's voice crackled in the control room. "Play it."
Now.
The lights dimmed. The MC, mid-sentence, faltered as the massive LED screen behind him came to life with static. Guests looked up, puzzled. Then the image sharpened. Alina's bloodied face filled the screen. A collective gasp swept the room. Cut to Samra, in the garage, swinging a metal pipe with a wicked smile. Cut to Harris's cold voice. "No bruises on the face. We need the autopsy to look clean." Gasps turned into screams. Guests stood up. Cell phones came out. Cameras flashed. The entire ballroom plunged into chaos. Samra's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered. Harris paled, staring at the screen in horror, realizing, too late, he was watching his empire collapse. The video didn't stop. Bank records flashed next. Transactions, forged signatures, the inheritance papers Harris had tried to hide. Hidden camera clips played. Alina's tears, her begging for her unborn child, the final blow that knocked her unconscious. No narration was needed. The truth screamed louder than any accusation. And then, as if scripted, the ballroom doors burst open. Police stormed in. "Mr. Harris Zuffer, Ms. Samra Sheikh, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud." Flashbulbs exploded like fireworks. Journalists who'd been tipped off surged forward, recording every second. Samra tried to run. 2 officers grabbed her. Harris raised his hands, mumbling, "There's a misunderstanding." But Denial was already walking toward him through the stunned crowd. Their eyes locked. Harris saw no rage, just cold justice. "You should have killed her when you had the chance," Denial said softly. "Now she'll live to watch you rot." Outside the ballroom, a quiet figure stood watching from a car parked across the street. Alina, her legs still healing, her hand resting on her pregnant belly, she watched as her abusers were dragged away in handcuffs. For the first time in months, she allowed herself a small smile. Not of revenge, but of survival. Samra ran. Her heels clicked frantically against the marble floor as guests parted in shock. A waiter dropped a tray. A woman screamed. Samra shoved past a security guard, sprinting toward the exit like a cornered animal. But she didn't make it far. Tackled to the ground by hotel security, she kicked and spat like a wild thing. "Get off me. This is all fake. They edited it. Let me go." Cameras caught every second. Inside the ballroom, Harris stood frozen, sweat dripping down his temples. Then, as if waking from a spell, he exploded. "She planned it. She manipulated me. I didn't touch Alina. She did it all," he shouted, jerking against the officers holding his arms. But no one believed him. His voice, once charming and commanding, now sounded pathetic, powerless. Moments later, the ballroom doors opened again. All heads turned. Alina entered in a wheelchair. Her long scarf flowed gently behind her. One leg still in a cast, one hand resting on her lap, the other held a tiny bundle wrapped in pink. Her newborn daughter. Beside her stood Denial, jaw tight, eyes fierce. As the officers marched Harris toward the exit, Alina looked up, directly into the eyes of the man who had once sworn to protect her. The man who had nearly killed her. She said nothing for a moment. Then, calmly, quietly, she spoke. "You broke my legs, Harris. But not my spirit." Harris opened his mouth to reply, but words failed. What could he say? The world had already judged him. Alina didn't wait for a response. She looked down at her daughter, smiling softly. "She'll never know the darkness you come from. Only the light we survived." Outside the venue, the media had already gathered in full force. Photos of Alina, bloodied on screen moments ago, now showed her radiant, holding her baby, wrapped in strength. The headlines were swift. The woman who survived hell. From victim to warrior, Alina's unbreakable story. Justice bleeds gold. Harris and Samra to face full trial. Somewhere inside a jail cell, Harris screamed into the void. Samra sat silently, defeated. But outside, under the open sky, a mother held her child, alive, free, and unshaken. And justice had never looked more beautiful. The sun rose over Islamabad, painting the sky in strokes of gold and rose, a sky that looked nothing like the one Alina had stared up at from the cold concrete of a garage floor. Now, she stood on the wide balcony of her new home. Not a mansion built on betrayal, but a place of purpose, of rebirth. In her arms slept her daughter, now a few months old, wrapped in a soft blanket stitched with tiny phoenix feathers, the symbol of something that dies only to rise stronger. Behind her stood a sign etched in polished marble. The Phoenix House, for mothers who refused to burn. Inside, women moved quietly through sunlit corridors, women who had once lived Alina's nightmare. A girl no older than 20 leaned over a crib, humming to her baby. Another stitched colorful embroidery near the common room. There was pain here, yes, but more importantly, there was healing. Alina had built this place for them. For every woman whose screams were once swallowed by silence. For every unborn child who deserved a life not shadowed by violence. And she hadn't done it alone. Denial walked out onto the balcony beside her, a steaming cup of tea in hand. He handed it to her, smiling. 10 residents in the first week. Not bad, big sister. Alina chuckled softly. And not a single broken bone in sight. Denial's face hardened slightly. And never again under my watch. Their work had just begun, but the world was already watching. Clips of Harris and Samra's trial had gone viral. Courtroom footage showing a cold-blooded conspiracy, the pipe, the sedative-laced tea, the inheritance plot. The public reaction was swift. Outrage poured across social media. Hashtags trended globally. Justice for Alina. Phoenix House. Survivor not victim. Harris received 25 years in prison. Samra got life without parole. They had tried to erase Alina, but had only immortalized her instead. Alina looked out over the hills, a gentle breeze brushing against her cheeks. Her daughter stirred, tiny fingers curling around the edge of her mother's dupatta. Alina bent her head and kissed her softly. They tried to destroy me, but pain made me powerful. A bell rang downstairs. Another woman had just arrived. Alina turned with a soft smile. Another soul seeking sanctuary. Another phoenix waiting to rise. The dawn had broken, and this time, it belonged to her.